Welcome, everybody, to Minions of the Zoo. It's the Tuesday edition. That means I'm your keeper, Skep Tock, and with me this evening I have Minions Prospero,
Hello.
the Harry Channel,
Good evening.
Sora Luna,
Hello and good evening.
and friend of the Minions, Charming Cthulhu.
Good morning, everyone.
Uh, good morning. Let's see, where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm in Florida, but I work nights, so I don't get off till 7 a.m.
So it's your morning. I understand.
Yes,
Just
sir.
going to work right now. Anyway, I hope everybody is having a good day. Prospero, what was your day like?
Oh, it was early start. I woke up at 4:30 this morning, so that was interesting. The guy came to wash our windows, the former middle school teacher, so he and I had a lovely conversation about the fact that the world is full of stupid. And let's see. Then I took a whole bunch of stuff to get shredded. And it was lovely, and several large items also left this house in the trash bin, which was also quite lovely. So
window washing and paper shredding.
window washing, paper shredding.
Sort of symmetry there, really.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. And then I watched Viva Fry's really interesting vlog on the Project Veritas filing.
Oh, I would like to discuss that maybe later in this show.
Yeah, it's a hell of a nice filing.
I'd like to hear your take on that. Cool, excellent. Harry, what's going on in your life, man?
I spent much of today in bed.
Jeez, how's the post-injection reaction?
Well, I thought I was clear because, I got it on Friday, and then Saturday was like, kind of feel a little off, and then Sunday it's like, oh, I'm, feeling pretty fatigued, and Monday, and now it's Tuesday, and it's like, holy crap, now I had the fever, the fatigue, the headache.
All the stuff I had, yeah.
Screw it, I'm just going to bed. Of course, apparently I'm just slow. I'm just slow, and it takes a few days for me to get around to feeling like crap over it. I mean, I'd still do it again in a heartbeat. It's not really that big a deal. I'm just lucky that my line of work allows a certain flexibility in terms of like when I have to be there. Because if I was working at Best Buy or something at like a tech desk, and people were coming up to me and asking me about Windows and viruses and stuff, I would just yeet myself from the planet. That would just be more than I could take in my current state. But instead I just said, I feel like crap, I'm going to bed. And I think I've managed an entire 5 hours of work today so far.
Wow.
And now I'm here.
That's actually
bright-eyed,
impressive.
bushy-tailed.
Thank you for joining us on the show. I know you're not feeling.
Oh, I actually feel much better now than I did, but we'll see how long that lasts. It's still going to be great because come the end of the month, I'm free.
Did you have the Moderna or the Pfizer?
Pfizer.
Yeah. Okay. So you had the same one that I had, and with me, I tended to react about 12, 18 hours later. Kind of put me down a little bit, just not for too long, and then I bounced right back.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Everybody's a little different in terms of how they react to this thing, and I think my body just sort of initially got the memo saying, "Okay, make spike proteins," and then my body said, "No, go screw yourself."
Yeah,
and it's like, make spike proteins. No, not gonna do it. We don't feel like it. Not gonna do it. And finally, it just like enough of the mRNA got in there that it said, "Okay, fine."
Yeah. All right.
Let's get this over with.
That's it.
But yeah, overall, I've got a roof over my head. Nobody's shooting at me. Plenty to eat. It's a good day.
Right. Absolutely. You're not in Somalia. Sora, how was your day?
Okay.
How's it going, eh? Beauty. Take off, eh?
The dude I was talking to today made me think of you, Sora. He said there's a place in Vancouver, BC. He said where 5 points kind of meet, and there's a Starbucks on every one of them. And he said it was so strange, just so strange. And I said, "What, Berkeley North? You're having a problem with the fact there's Starbucks littering Vancouver?" Just
there actually is a street in Boston that has Starbucks catty corners.
I believe
diagonally
it.
across the intersection.
Yeah.
No, we had that. We used to have that downtown too, but they closed one of them, and it became a clothing store.
Hmm.
I'll have to tell Don next time I see him. Sorry, man. You're
All
beautiful.
the Starbucks are shutting down here. There's very little left.
Oh.
Because I think they're closing like 300 retail stores, something like that.
I find I can bear their misfortune with enormous fortitude. How about you?
I just tried to swallow while grinning. It doesn't work well.
All right, very good. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us. Charming Cthulhu, you and I are just meeting in person for the first time. I've seen your posts on Minions, but I don't know you well. Can tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, I do have a comic collecting Instagram. I'm really into that. I've also just started doing comic reviews here on YouTube, or at least posting them up. So my first few videos actually aren't doing bad, considering it's just out of nowhere and all that. I do that. I play Warhammer 40K, or at least I want to play. Painting, all that kind of stuff. I work security gig, went through the police academy, but, due to the current socio-political climate, it might not be the safest idea to join up or go to a police department. So I might change my line of work on that one.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us this evening. It's nice to meet you. We have a number of things to talk about this evening. Obviously, the big story that's on everybody's mind is all the stuff with the Chauvin verdict in Minnesota. But before we get to that, I wanted to cover one thing that I think is cool, and then I wanted to ask Harry to go into something, and then Prospero to do that, and then if we have time, maybe we can get to that little fracas up in Minnesota. But the thing that I thought was cool, they flew a helicopter on Mars this week, and that just made me happy. They flew the Perseverance rover on Mars, which sent back some amazeballs pictures of its landing. It's a parachute deployment and the odd little, elegant little engineering solution they have to land the thing on Mars. That was spectacular. But this may even be more spectacular. It had a little drone helicopter under its undercarriage. The other day, it dropped the cover that protected the drone and moved away from the cover, and then lowered the drone to the surface, then moved away from the drone again, and then they did some software magic to update some software so that to change something about the flight profile, and voila, they started the rotors, and that thing flew up to it was just a real straight up in the air, take a picture and come back down.
3 meters.
Yeah, proof of concept flight, 10 feet in the air, 10 feet in the air, and that was it. And I was just so happy about that because I think it's just too cool. I don't know. Did anybody else have almost a childlike happiness with that today?
Oh, yeah.
An accomplishment.
I mean, would that? I was going to ask, would that imply that Mars has an atmosphere? I
Yes,
mean, of course, we knew that there is some sort of atmosphere with gas clouds and all that, but would that also imply that there's potential, or that the atmosphere is strong enough and has enough gases to maybe terraform one day in the future?
It doesn't have enough of an atmosphere. It only has about 1% of the atmosphere of Earth. It's actually less than 1%. of the atmosphere of Earth, but it is enough of an atmosphere that if you make the drone light enough and the blades big enough and the engine powerful enough, you can get a drone up into the air. And that was really an interesting. They knew what the vapor pressure, what the atmospheric pressure was on Mars, and so they had all the information, and they know the gravitation, so they had all the numbers that they needed to figure out if the thing would fly. And so they simply made a robot drone that was built to fly on Mars, and fly it did. But as far as doing something like terraforming, that we could probably do a whole stream on speculating on what it would take to terraform something. One thing you need if you're going to terraform something is an enormous storehouse of materials and energy, and in addition to an atmosphere. You could almost make the atmosphere an ingredient in what you were adding to the planet. But Mars has some problems with respect to maintaining an atmosphere or keeping an atmosphere. It doesn't have enough of a magnetic field to shield an atmosphere from the solar winds. So the solar winds tend to bleed it off over time. That's why they believe that's why Mars' atmosphere is so thin now. It's just been picked off by the sun over the years. And when I was young, it was much thicker, of course. But, I'm so old that it's actually lost most of its atmosphere, all but just a little bit. But at any rate, at one time it probably had water. It seems to have had water, the evidence of that, and probably was a pretty wet planet, actually, from what they seem to think. And it's an interesting place, but it used to be more interesting, unfortunately. Now it's just kind of a sandy desert with perchlorate infused rock that you can't grow anything in. So anyway, it would be a challenge to render it into something habitable by human beings without protective shelters to live in. But at any rate, they flew a drone on Mars. I was amazed. I was astonished and happy. And in a time of pandemics and some of the strife social strife that's been going on, it's kind of nice to have a feel-good story like that. So that one made me happy. But Harry, you and I were talking before the stream about something you'd run across.
Well, I sort of ran across it. So I was talking with somebody in Not So Obvious a Server. He's one of the British YouTubers that I started interacting with before I even met the minions. This is where I met Prospero. And he brought up the idea of the inner party. And I'm like, that sounds awfully familiar. So, use the Google machine. The inner party comes up, and it's a thing that was talked about briefly in 1984.
Right.
Now, when I mentioned this, he said, "Oh, silly me! I actually got it from an Iron Maiden song and this other thing." Okay, so I'm leapfrogging. So I actually told him, I said, "Look, I kind of had forgotten about it because I haven't read 1984 since before 1984. So it's been a while, and some of the details got glossed over."
Back when it was futuristic, you mean?
Back when it was futuristic, because in the world of 1984. There are basically three classes of people.
Right.
There's the proletariat, or the proles, which is 85% of the population. And at the top, less than 2% of the population are what are called the inner party. And those are the party faithful. And then between that two are the outer party, which is where all your bureaucrats and government minions and those types of people sort of live. Your Winstons live in that category. And those are people with just enough power that you kind of have to keep an eye on them constantly. There's no reason to keep an eye on the proles because they can't do anything.
Right.
They can just live in squalor and be relatively free. And the inner party people have all kinds of privileges. They can turn off the two-way view screen if they so choose. Now, typically they wouldn't, but they can turn it off if they want, versus the 24-hour surveillance that somebody like Winston had. Because he was a member of the outer party. And as I was looking at this, I'm like, I don't think that the book spends a whole lot of time talking about that. It's really about Winston's problems. It really deals mostly with the outer party, which is why I kind of didn't think about it. Anything you've read from that far back, there's going to be parts of it that kind of stick in your mind, the parts that you think are significant. Like everybody loves bringing up the clips of, Winston having a meal with his friend who works at the Ministry of Truth and him bragging about how small they're making the dictionary.
Right.
Just to get rid of all those extraneous words. That's one of the
so
greatest
there'll be no
hits
words at all. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the things that people sort of gravitate to. And of course, I always remember the Victory Gin and, different, was it I Bet You and You Bet Me under the spreading chestnut tree and the whole thing with Julia. I mean, I remember parts of it, but I completely blocked out the inner party. But enough about my brain. So I was going to Wikipedia and just looking at some of the details because I think they're kind of interesting. You might see some parallels to modern times. So let me just do a little bit of reading from Wikipedia if you don't mind.
Please.
The inner party represents the oligarchical political class in Oceania. That's the country that they're in. It is the first ruling class in history dispensing with ideology. It is generally represented by Big Brother. Inner party members enjoy a quality of life that is much better than that of the outer party members and the proles. The telescreens in their homes can ostensibly be turned off indefinitely, although O'Brien tells Winston and Julia it is unwise to turn it off more than 30 minutes at a time. The revelation might, however, be a lie to Winston and Julia, and the conversations, okay, well, that's getting into stuff we don't need to care about. Inner party members have access to spacious living quarters, personal servants, private motor vehicles. Motor vehicles are very heavily restricted and not allowed to outer party or proles, and high-quality food, drink, and consumer goods, in contrast to the low-quality gin, mostly synthetic coffee, and improperly manufactured cigarettes consumed by the outer party and the proles. Inner party members have access to wine, as well as real coffee, tea, sugar, milk, and well-made cigarettes. Inner party neighborhoods are kept clean and presentable compared to outer party and prole neighborhoods. Prospective members of the inner party are selected at a young age according to a series of tests. Racial origin and family heritage are of no importance in the process as long as their loyalty is proven. Well, see, that's one difference right there. Goldstein's book states that a child born to inner party parents is not automatically born into the inner party, and that all racial groups in Oceania...
Be careful of a word that's coming up here.
I see the word.
Okay.
Jews, old word for black populations, and South Americans of pure Indian blood are represented in the ranks. Visually, inner party members are always identifiable in public by their black jumpsuits. No outer party members or prole may venture into inner party neighborhoods without permission from an inner party member. Now, as I look at the a lot of what's happened during the pandemic, with Gavin Newsom's wine bar and eating at the French Laundry,
Sure.
and you just keep looking at all the different stuff, and you look at who's locked down and who isn't, who's
Some
enforced
animals
and
are
who
more
isn't.
equal than others.
Some animals are more equal than others. You look at who's monitored all the time and who isn't. It's a little frightening just to see how on the nose this is, other than the fact that he didn't anticipate critical race theory. It seems like people figure they can just destroy everything and burn it all down because we know that the stuff's not coming to their neighborhood. You can't get into their gated communities, much like the inner party members that are there.
He wouldn't have
Now-
anticipated critical race theory because to the British class is far more important than race and always has been,
Exactly.
which is
But
why
also-
it's a class division the way it is between the proletariat, the proles, the outer party and the inner party. I mean, those are kind of rigid caste systems.
Yep.
And that's what would be chiseled in stone for that kind of dystopian British culture, whereas ours, interestingly enough, has broken into the oppression stack.
Yep. I think Cthulhu,
Which
you were
is-
going to say something?
Yeah. I was just gonna add, I fully don't believe that our top level government officials who are introducing critical race theory into the military, schools, other things like that, I don't believe that they actually believe any of it. I fully think that it's only a way to destroy the last values of America that have to do with individuality and private property rights.
Well, private property rights for the vast majority of people. Look at the the World
Oh, yeah.
Economic Forum and their Project 2030. You won't need to own anything. It'll just be delivered by an Amazon drone to your doorstep, and then you can just borrow it. But you won't have to be burdened with any possessions. And the whole idea of we're going to tax people based on the amount of distance that they travel. I mean, how free can an individual be if the very act of movement is now taxed?
Oh yeah, did you see? I'm sure you guys remember when Computing Forever got banned off of YouTube.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost 100% sure part of that was him talking about. It was either the Scottish or Irish bill proposed for getting rid of driving and moving people into the big cities. Yeah, almost entirely along the same lines of everything that we've talked about, especially 1984.
Yeah, there is this notion amongst all these revolutionaries that somehow they're going to be in the inner party. This is where all these people seem to think they're going to show up because they're the most virtuous and the best of us, the best of us that should be an example to the others, which is why, the BLM woman going on her little real estate shopping spree seems totally natural. Because being a Marxist and buying a bunch of luxury properties for her and her family is a totally expected outcome for these folks.
Yeah, they do not see the contradiction, in part because they don't even understand what it is that they're supporting.
I think most of them don't even care about the contradiction. They just want their side to win.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, there's the true believers and there's the useful idiots. We have to just sort of figure out which group we're talking about. I think there are a lot of aspiring people that are in the class of useful idiots who don't see the contradiction because they're just so indoctrinated. The people at the top are probably aware of the contradiction, but it's just a tool to try to get what they want. And it still baffles me that people would actually go there because this is like an unthinkable nuclear option. The idea that we would just start turning Americans against each other after all the years of trying to bridge those divides and make things better, to make the melting pot work and to work on social mobility and do all those things. They're going to go, no, screw that. We don't need that. We'll just cast all that aside and just start pitting groups against each other. And then as soon as we have 51% of the vote, we'll just basically put our foot on the necks of the people who got the 49% vote.
They could not get their way. They could not get enough people to sign on to their utopian dream. And when you can't get enough people to volunteer, you make them do it.
I would think the moderate Democrats are probably feeling pretty betrayed at this point because it's not. This is not what most of them signed up for.
They're trying to survive at this point, because if they speak out, they shall be cast into the land of Nod.
Burn the heretic.
Yeah, they won't see the kingdom of heaven. These guys, this is something I want to explore a little bit more Thursday, so I don't really want to overtalk it tonight. But there is a great deal about the left that is reminding me of the Calvinists.
I saw your comment. I thought that was on point.
Without the fun.
Yep.
Yeah, we can definitely explore that.
She's being facetious, folks.
Oh, no, the Calvinists are more fun than these people. These people are Cromwell.
Yeah, Calvinists are not fun by any sense of any modern sense,
But
and so she's
Cromwell
making a point.
Cromwell was the super Calvinist.
Yes, Cromwell was the least fun
Calvinist.
person maybe in history, as far as I'm
He was
concerned.
more Calvinist than Calvin. And Calvin was a fun fucker. But there's something there about.
Well, John Calvin was at least a decent man.
He was more of a moral philosopher inside the world of theology than anything else. And I mean, he was wrestling with some big ideas that the Reformation was going to have to wrestle with.
Yeah.
And so I don't hold John Calvin responsible for the misery wrought by the Calvinists.
They were just trying to get the Bible in English.
It's like I don't hold the founders of Methodism responsible for what Methodism became.
Thank you.
The torchbearers of liberation theology and collective salvation and other nonsense like that.
That's what comes from abandoning the grace theology.
Absolutely, and that is one thing. And see, I just really do want to explore this more because with the left, there is no grace, there is no redemption arc. So
Methodists either.
now they've given it up.
Yep.
They've given it up, and it's really rather tragic because one of the most even if you're just looking at it from the outside, if someone were trying to invite you into a religion, the concept of grace is
very welcoming.
It is so generous. It is just incredibly generous that you are allowed to transgress. Our entire, most of our justice system was predicated on underlying concepts like that.
Absolutely.
That you can serve your time.
Parole.
And be redeemed within society.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the Western world, in fact.
Yeah, and it isn't, and it's funny because the baby is being thrown out with the bathwater.
And the house set on fire.
And yes, because people can't seem to understand that you can actually take some of these concepts as moral concepts apart from the theology. Nobody says you have to believe in God to understand the principles of grace. And it's not just a principle, there's kind of principles attached to it.
The problem with Methodism, since you're talking about it, to me, is that it posits an impossible task for the follower, and that is to be perfect.
Oh,
because that's what you have to strive for.
Yeah, one of the major problems that certain sects have within Christianity.
It's easy for you to say.
And it's one of the things that I found difficult to understand as a young person, and then came to understand that it was a silly idea, and not at all what the figure of Christ was asking for at all. Is that people think they have to live like Christ. Well, number one, you're not, so quit being arrogant. And number two, no, it's you're human. Christ isn't. Christ has one foot in both worlds. This is the exception, not the rule. and it's at no point does he say you have to be like me. He doesn't say that.
He says, "Follow me, don't be me."
Follow me, not be me, and believe in my presence among you.
Believe in his forgiveness. Believe in his doctrine of grace, for gosh sakes.
What I'm doing, and it's a story of an incredible gift.
Yeah, it is.
And that gift has been eschewed, and it's to me the moral lessons of this aesthete rabbi, or whatever people choose to view Christ as, they've just pitched them away because they've got a hard-on against religion.
Right.
And
just to add in real... Oh, sorry about that, Prospero.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add in real fast for anyone listening in the chat. If you want to learn more about what we're talking about, but you don't exactly want the entire metaphysical aspect, Dr. Jordan Peterson did a great, it's like maybe 20 hours long lecture series on the morality of the Bible and what we can take from it from clinical, whatever his job title is, point of view.
He's also big on kind of the Jungian archetype, and Christ is like the Uber archetype. In that. So yeah, I mean he speaks a lot to the profound messages in the Judeo-Christian philosophy that it can be treated as philosophy, but it's one thing to tip a fedora. It's another thing to tip over the entire baby carriage and let and just let it all go. And I think we're seeing a society very much wrestling with that. And it's not because I'm sorry you're not as moral as I want you to be, scoldy boo boo hoo hoo. It's that they've given up the concept of redemption, which has held us together as a society.
Have you ever heard Richard Dawkins talk about the King James Version of the Bible? How important it is to Western civilization? How it is
both from literature and from
and from the theological and philosophical perspectives provided therein.
Yeah.
And how it underpins so much of Western thought. He said, if you don't know this document, if you eschew it because you think you're being a good atheist, and good atheist doesn't need to know anything about the Bible, you can't know anything about what underpins Western civilization.
Yeah, and it's to, I've heard people casually remark that the reason they don't like organized religion is everybody's a hypocrite. And I've always tried to respond as kindly as I can with, well, yes, that's exactly the point. We are. You're a hypocrite too, just because you're not a member of a religion. We battle against our hypocrisies. We seek to be as consistent and as moral, if we are seeking to be good people, as we possibly can. Some people consider that they are made moral by spending an hour on a pew singing hymns, and then they get up and they go outside and they start ripping their neighbor a new asshole. That's not moral. Churches are full of sinners, but general society is too. Just because you eschew religion does not make you better or smarter than those people sitting in the pew for that hour, because you're just as prone to the same foibles. And that's been my problem with the anti-theists. I don't have a gripe with the atheists. I can understand people saying, "Nope, sorry, not buying this guy, man." I can get it. But it is the entirety of it that has to be shat on to make people feel somehow or another like they have the moral high ground.
That's all about, too. You're exactly right.
But what are they predicating their morals on then? Because they're not conversant with Aristotle.
Not usually.
No, they have not studied the Greek
first principles.
No, they haven't studied Greek philosophy. They're not basing their morals on Persian writings. They are products of the West.
Very few Zoroastrians, I've noticed that. Yes.
Yeah, and they're not Baha'i. They're not. They're not, just not. They don't have anything, and it's what it is. It's almost like the argument between Franklin and Paine made manifest. That was an argument between two men about where...
Probably should run through that if you're going to call it out.
Thomas Paine...
Not everybody knows.
Thomas Paine was, of course, raised within an Anglican society, predominantly, and a very Christian society. But he was an atheist. He was eschewing religion and saying that one does not require any form of religious instruction to acquire morals. And Franklin was like, where the hell do you think you got your morals? Because part of Paine's argument was, I'm an atheist and I'm moral, see?
Yeah.
And Franklin was like, you got your morals as a stripling sitting by your parents. You got them with the rest of your community. You got the morals just like the rest of us did. Don't think you're so superior because you've decided that you're so intelligent and so useful on your own that you can say without a shadow of a doubt that you don't believe in God and you don't believe in organized religion at all.
Yeah. Your morals and rights came from the same place, bucko.
Yeah, and I mean, it was interesting, the deist and the atheist going at it, because Franklin was like, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
The morals are the morals of the greater society, and the greater society is predominantly, is Christian. It was certainly entirely Judeo-Christian.
Yeah.
And bite me. And it was a snippy little argument because Payne was being a bit of a fedora tipper.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've talked to other people who believe that morality arises from empathy and that empathy is hard coded in the human neurological system. That might be, but there are moral lessons that are contained within stories that have been told from the Greeks through the Romans, through the
Byzantines.
Christians to now. And the Christians were the standard bearers for a lot of those. You can find an awful lot of overlap between Aesop's fables and the Bible.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you think the influences of the authors of any of the fables, Aesop's fables, any of the Grimm brothers stuff, any of that stuff? That's all biblically infused.
And some of the stuff predates and informed the educated men of the church. You know, we can have an admixture. It's perfectly permissible. But I see a society desperately foundering right now because it doesn't have a moral compass.
Well, we have Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters lacks a moral compass. And I think it's very clear. She's decided that one team is good,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can do no evil, and the other team is bad, and the only reason they are bad is because she says so. But she's good, so listen to her. And she's somebody that an SC rabbi might have bumped into in the desert, if you get my drift. Or speaketh with forketh tongue.
You know, it's so funny. I just Googled what is Maxine Waters' net worth. You know how you can do that. You always get these tremendous things. I love how Google does this. Maxine Waters' net worth is estimated to be $1.5 to $2 million. I just let that sink in for a minute. Now, given the amount of money that her husband has made over the years, he's very successful.
Why so low?
I'm surprised it's so low. I just think that's
I'm wondering if that is the reported worth.
Yeah, I wonder what.
If there is separate tax filings, by the way. Which
Yeah, and, you know, I was reading a thing in the Sun. It says Democratic Rep Maxine Waters has come under fire from Republicans claiming she is, quote, encouraging riots, end quote. The criticism has come after the California Democratic Congresswoman urged an anti-police Black Lives Matter mob in Minnesota to, quote, stay on the street, end quote, and, quote, get confrontational, end quote. So who is the outspoken rep, and what is her net worth? And then it goes on to say who she is. And in the course of this, it does not talk about her husband at all. You know, the media is just completely taken over by the left.
Mm-hmm.
This is absolutely amazing. You know, and what follows is a puff piece, basically saying that, you know, the Republicans just misunderstand the good intentions of the Democratic California representative, and she, you know, people just don't understand her, and you just can't understand her unless you come from her experience base.
The misunderstood $2.5 million baby.
Wow. Yeah.
When you put it that way.
I'll tell you this: she's worth an awful lot more than that. She's worth a tremendous amount of money. It's a lot more than $2 billion.
But that's the money under her name. Everything else is under
It might be under
a numbered company, or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
One of those coded accounts in
the Caymans.
or in Switzerland. Yeah, exactly. So anyway,
Nicaragua.
yeah. Well, I suppose we should get down to it, because I mean, let's face it, all of us are proles. We're not even outer party
Poor
members.
Harry, we really derailed his direction.
No. I just wanted to introduce it. I didn't want to spend 30 minutes talking about an old book that people who are interested will read it. But I think it's worth a reread. I think people who haven't read it, I would encourage them to read it. I also encourage people to read
Animal
Brave
Farm.
New World. Animal Farm is a good one. Brave New World is good because there's more than one way to screw up humanity.
Yep.
They're all good. Maybe don't read them back to back like I did.
Yeah.
But
of course, for me, that's pleasure
books.
reading. So but yeah, I reread 1984 last year, and I get so much out of that. Plus, Orwell could really write. And he was a writer in the British journalistic tradition of knowing what the hell you're doing. So I enjoy.
If we're throwing out books real fast, just wanted to recommend Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard. Goes down to the basic fundamentals of private property rights.
Are you a
libertarianism,
Rothbardian?
Non-aggression. Why, yes, sir.
All right. Not a plant eater, huh? So,
No, sir. I do believe in pro-life, though. That is one of the things that I differ when it comes to the fact that children in the womb cannot protest for their own. That shouldn't mean, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's continue.
yeah. If we go down the abortion path, we won't talk about anything else all night, and so let's kind of steer away from
or tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes on and on. But interesting to have a Rothbardian libertarian, somebody who's even more libertarian than I am, and that doesn't really happen that often. So it's kind of fun. I advertise myself as a small L libertarian, so I'm a plant eater by your standards. Anyway, let's see. What was the thing? What was that thing in Minnesota?
I love that sigh out of Sora. The preparatory sigh.
Thing, yeah, it was a thing, and it was interesting watching what riots took place after. I'm not sure how bad it's going to get. I don't have the heart to bring up Eyes On.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about doing. Yeah.
Well, there's this video of them swarming a big rig, and some people talking about disconnecting the trailer, and they really wanted the stuff that was in that big rig.
Oh, I saw that. That was scary.
It was scary, but the rhetoric leading up to it was what I thought was interesting. It's like, okay, we've got their attention now, and we've just had this big victory. We can't let up now because we didn't get here by being polite or not, or playing by the rules that they want us to play by. So it's as if there's going to be riots regardless. It doesn't matter what we do.
Oh my God, that
it's
explains
just going to keep
Nancy
happening.
Pelosi's words.
Exactly, and I really think that this trial verdict was just them literally sacrificing him to test the waters to see what would happen from the intolerant left. Yeah.
Well,
Never give in to progressives.
Pelosi-
Don't apologize. Don't give in.
Well, Pelosi wanted to thank George Floyd for sacrificing himself to him for justice. And
Which is disgusting on multiple levels, but
yeah, well, the Christ-like narrative is a little creepy.
Yeah.
Particularly because it doesn't hold up under comparison.
It's so damn inappropriate for one thing. How about that? Is that the word you're looking for?
Yeah, and I mean, it's, of course they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because they don't care. They have the control. And they went from 0 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Without even pausing to collect the 200 as they screeched around the go corner. They've been saying a lot of the quiet parts out loud, which means they think they have iron control. Both through the method of counting, as we've mentioned, he who counts gets to win, and just a captive fan base, a captive reliant fan base.
What Prospero is referring to, by the way, for anybody who is not au courant on the allusion she just made, is that a dictator, Russian dictator named of Stalin, said that it doesn't matter who votes; it matters who counts the votes.
Yeah.
He wasn't wrong.
No, he was rather proud of it.
Luckily, nothing like that would ever happen in the United States. Isn't that right, YouTube censors?
That's absolutely right. In fact, all elections in the United States are completely legitimate. I have
Honest
total
and
faith.
fair.
I have total faith in the mechanisms that are in place to ensure that every person who is supposed to vote has a vote, and every vote is counted absolutely accurately.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's extremely important that we keep that in mind because we really like being here.
Yes, I like being here. I want to be on YouTube. I support the Master Susan.
This is the best timeline that we live in right now.
Yes,
But you're not wrong. I mean,
we think right.
Your
Right
pan
think.
gloss imitation needs a little work there, Harry.
yeah. Well, there's a
Businessman world.
I had a thought just as a brief diversion. I was watching this YouTube thing, and I'd never seen this before. It was this woman who, she does like cosplay stuff and talks about gaming and things. And she was doing this skit where she had a bunch of characters. And the thought that cropped through my mind, maybe it's just because I'm getting old, isn't, oh, she's cute or whatever. It was just like, God, I hate theater people sometimes. It's just like, it is so tiresome to be around people who kind of sort of know how to act.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, obviously really good actors, people who are professionals who really, the greats would not be like that. I'll happily go drinking and destroy my liver with Peter O'Toole, if I have a time machine. I'm happy to hang out with him. But some of these thespian types are just so tedious.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same
Anyway.
thing as going to a party with someone who just learned how to play acoustic guitar, and they bring it out and say, "Hey guys, check this out."
Good God,
Like,
he's
do you
got
know
it.
the
heard
song
Wonderwall?
Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, did you go to my parties too?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
If you can't pull out some Leo Kottke, don't play in front of your friends. I've learned this.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys, you that's right. You play the banjo and a couple other instruments, right?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
That was
Very
pretty
awesome,
serious for a
Skep.
few years.
Banjo's difficult to learn.
Yeah, banjo's an attitude. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
Let's talk about you, Skep.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about me. We've talked way too much about me. Now, one of the things that really does concern me, and this really kind of does go back a little bit to what Harry was talking about, but also to the nonsense that's. Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Jenna's in the wings.
Ha! I did not hear the beep. Hey, Jenna, welcome.
Hi,
How you doing, hon?
Hello.
I'm alive.
Good.
Just
I'm
Pluto
doing
is
better
so
than
far away.
Minneapolis or wherever it is, Minnesota.
All right. What is the
Sure.
purple? What is the purple icon you got going there? Is that some sort of
It's a galaxy thing.
galaxy? Okay, it looked like a star cluster or a dust cloud, globular dust cloud or something. Very good. Very
Yeah,
nice.
I've had that since I changed my computer. Since I got my computer and I couldn't figure out how to get Pluto back.
Okay.
We'll get Pluto.
Close enough.
We've got one
Space.
Pluto. We've got one Pluto on the stream as it is. So, but you're
No Pluto deniers here.
Yeah.
I'm not falling for that again, new guy.
Yeah. By the way, Jenna, this is Charming Cthulhu. Charming Cthulhu. This is Jenna, and Charming Cthulhu is joining us for the first time this evening. Jenna, and
Yeah, we
howdy.
talked in an after stream for a while.
Okay, that's right. That's right. All right, so you guys don't.
Yeah, you just kept calling him new guy.
Yeah,
Well,
it's accurate.
I just
Hey.
called him new guy again.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't feel self-conscious, Cthulhu.
I love nicknames.
Anyway,
Okay,
getting
you
back,
won't
getting
mind what's your face?
Hey, you.
We're,
getting back to the
we're friendly
the
around
nonsense
here.
in Minnesota and what Harry was talking about. One of the things that really concerns me now is the almost complete alienation between the left and the right. Between what we're seeing, what putatively is the left and putatively is the right.
Well, from the
And-
normies, we're just seeing team sports.
Well, but I'm just wondering, what do you think is going to happen? What do people think is going to happen with this? Because government is going to be basically at a standstill the way things are going.
You want
know,
to talk government or culture? Because there's probably two different ways you can go at it. Sorry, Prospero, I didn't mean to cut it.
No, that's
a good point,
thought.
Harry.
Yeah, I was going to say government being in stasis actually appeals to me.
Right. Well, it would appeal to anybody with libertarian tendencies.
Yeah, because there's something to
I
be
agree,
said.
Prospero.
Something to be said for a stalemate.
I'm pro gridlock.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
gridlock. Gridlock makes me happy. Government shutdowns, it's like, except for the theater that goes around them, how many
Yep.
people noticed?
Here's the problem with gridlock. Things don't get any worse, but they don't get any better. And government can improve itself
It
by
could-
cutting pieces
could.
of itself off and killing them.
Yeah, except they don't. So
Well, I know it's almost like an organism. It's almost anti-instinctual.
if team self-murder is not in the room, which they most definitely are not, if they're being held in check.
I mean, the fact that we still have the Rural Electrification Commission getting millions and millions of dollars every year.
Yeah, and there have been adequate numbers of supposedly conservative presidents who could
Yes.
have made that go away and
Well,
didn't.
In relative terms, the biggest spender in terms of presidents, given the national debt that he started with and what was at the end of his 2 terms, was George W. Bush.
Of course.
By far and away. Doesn't even
He's
have
not
a
conservative,
competitor.
though. He's not a conservative. I mean, he is, but he's a.
He's a big government.
Yeah,
He's not even a
Yeah.
big government Republican because
He's one of the war
Rockefeller
pig
was
neocons.
responsible.
Yeah, war pig neocons.
He really kind of is.
It's a good description.
Well, yeah,
They've all become war pig neocons.
I'm thinking you watched some Styx Hexenhammer, it sounds like, Cthulhu.
Oh, yes, sir.
You're a
Yes,
clanker?
I am unfamiliar with that term, although I should know it.
Yeah. He clanks his coffee cups, and those of us
Spoon.
who've been with his spoon, and those of us who have been watching him for a while refer to ourselves, and he calls us his clankers, the clanking army and so forth.
Oh, copy that. Yeah, no, I have watched him.
Spoon.
A good amount.
Yeah, I did too. I got a little tired. Truth be told, I like him. I mean, I think he's a personable fellow, and he certainly. There are many things that Styx sees that I think a lot of other people kind of don't catch in certain instances. You know, or he'll latch on to like a smaller item in remarks by politicians.
People don't realize how hard he works.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Man.
I have I've watched him enough and heard other people who know him better than I do that they say that he's essentially just a workaholic, just works 24/7, trying to stay informed, trying to gain perspective on the politics of the world. And as a result, point of view, to me, is pretty refined.
Can I ask
Oh,
you a
100%.
But
question?
not as good as
Values.
Susan Wojcicki's. Not as good as Susan Wojcicki's.
Very true. Very true.
Just want to get that out there because Susan knows best, and we love Susan and respect her.
We
Yes,
love Susan.
We love you.
We love you, Susan.
What was your question, Jenna?
Did you guys talk about what the former president of the United States tweeted after the verdict for Derek Chauvin?
What President Obama tweeted out?
Yeah.
No.
Or
did.
what AOC tweeted?
Let's see. Obama.
Will I become
was-
less intelligent by hearing what AOC said about it?
What do
Pretty
you
much they're saying
When will you not?
Jesus.
You know,
it's not justice.
here's what Barack Obama said. He waited to say after they convicted police officer Derek Chauvin of second-degree murder, and Obama said, "Today, a jury in Minneapolis did the right thing." Quote, end quote. For almost a year, George Floyd's death under the knee of a police officer has reverberated around the world, inspiring murals and marches, sparking conversations in living rooms and new legislation. But a more basic question has always remained, would justice be done? They said. In this case, at least we have our answer. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we know that true justice is about much more than a single verdict and a single trial. The Obamas later added, and as we continue the fight, we can draw strength from the millions of people, especially young people, who have marched and protested and spoken up over the last year, mostly peacefully, shining a light on iniquity and calling for change. Justice is closer today, not simply because of this verdict, but because of their work and the cities they have burned. Okay, I added that last part.
It sounds like he just wants to be instilled as one of the factional leaders once the tankies overthrow the constitutional republic.
Yeah, well, Obama also said, while today's verdict may have been a necessary step on the road to progress, it was far from a sufficient one, of course. We cannot rest. We will need to follow through with the concrete reforms that will reduce and ultimately eliminate racial bias in our criminal justice system. We will need to redouble efforts to expand economic opportunity for those communities that have been too long marginalized, which all of us here on the Minion stream agree with, Susan. We think that's a great idea. And as we continue the fight, we can draw strength from the millions of people, especially young people, who have marched and protested and spoken up over the last year, shining a light on inequity and calling for change. Justice is closer today, not simply because of this verdict, but because of their work. Michelle and I send our prayers to the Floyd family in the hopes that they may find peace. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with all those who are committed to guaranteeing every American the full measure of justice that George and so many others have been denied, including the 9 victims of crime for which George Floyd was convicted. How about the woman he broke into her house posing as a waterman, held a gun to her pregnant stomach, and demanded the cash out of her purse?
With multiple people, just to add.
Yes. Yeah, I wonder if President Obama wants full measure of justice for her, or maybe not so much.
Well, no, because that interferes with his narrative. That interferes with cop bad, black good.
Well, anyway, what we want to say there is that we agree with that sentiment that Jenna just said, exactly because we want to stay on the air here, and we really love Susan. Have I said we love Susan in the last 2 minutes? I mean, we
I don't
really
know if you've
do
said
love
it
her.
enough.
So I want
I
to be
just wanted
super
to let
much
everyone know
serious. Go
how
ahead.
devoted I am to the party, and that the party is my life, and that anything that is asked of me I follow through with 100% completion.
Good. Now Harry's going to be an adult.
Should be 110. No, I mean, right after Derek Chauvin, both intentionally and unintentionally killed not Rodney King. I can't even get it right. What the hell's this guy's name again? George Floyd.
George Floyd.
I'm so bad. George Floyd. There were all these great stories being spun about how he'd had some problems in the past, but he was just getting his life on track. He was now was his big time, his breakout moment. After all of the bad things, he was really starting to turn things around.
So he was celebrating with a fatal fentanyl
celebrating
load.
with the fentanyl triple decker.
He goes to
fentanyl. It's the drug for people who are getting their lives together.
Get your life together. Try some fentanyl.
Maybe he just wanted that one last memory road, and then it was straight from now on.
Because if you're going to go interview for a new job the next day, you don't want that. You don't want the cauliflower ear and the rosy cheeks of an alcoholic. Oh no, fentanyl. It's the high that shows up when you want it and goes away when you don't.
That's right. Be mellow at your next interview.
I don't think I'm helping. I really don't feel like I'm helping.
Vitamin P.
I do want to take advantage of the fact that we have Charming Cthulhu here, and there's a line of questioning around this that's a little bit more serious. If you can give me a few minutes.
Please.
So what I was thinking when I was hearing about this today was, what effect is this going to have on the law enforcement officers that stick around? Because a bunch of people are going to quit, and we can accept that. But imagine you are officer friendly, and you show up for a call and things are not going particularly well. Imagine you end up in a situation exactly like the one that Chauvin found himself in. You've got somebody who seems to be in an altered state, who's not cooperating.
Yeah.
What is it that you do? And I was thinking, well, there's really only two options. You could either just go straight to the taser, because they gave it to you to use. You can't claim it's not part of department policy, or they wouldn't have given you a damn taser. Or you could just go, screw it, they don't pay me enough for this shit, and just essentially walk away. I actually kind of think that of the people who are stubborn enough to stick around, you're going to see a lot more use of less than lethal force, because the actual physical engagement is just so troublesome, because we've seen what happens in a trial. You can kind of sell the story however you want, depending on the camera angle and everything else. But in the case of something like chemical agents or a taser or something like that, it's a lot more clear cut what the rules are. Or am I just wrong here?
No, that's true. There is a use of force continuum where basically I'm pretty sure that it's a federal regulation when it comes to all that stuff. Here in Florida, we have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, and all of that kind of goes in tow. But something that's also not spoken about is there's over 25 million police interactions a day in America, and most of them end up being peaceful. So what we're seeing is just the worst of the worst. And of course, it all plays into the whole idea of the attention economy. The same thing that the major news networks were doing when they have the little death counter up at the top. You want to see, you want to look, and in turn, they make more money because they get to play more ads. So, I mean, where does the money lead? I don't know.
So you've been trained in the use of a taser, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
have you ever been tased?
Yes, sir.
That's part of the training, unfortunately. But my question is, what? I use the term less than lethal because everybody assumes a taser is not lethal, and that's not true. It's less lethal. So, what do you know about the number of people, or sort of the odds of people just sort of dying of like a cardiac arrest? Like, suppose you're hopped up.
It's almost none.
3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, and you get hit with a taser. What's going to happen to that person?
Here's the thing, right? So when you shoot someone with a taser, one prong normally goes up and one prong normally goes down. So what you want is a larger surface area for the current to travel through. Unless you're shooting somebody directly, like on top of the, let's say, left shoulder bone, and then you also hit them on the right thigh on the outside and the current goes through there, even then, it's really not likely that you're going to go into cardiac arrest. But under the use of drugs, it might not even be the taser itself. It might be the act of getting tased that causes you to go into some sort of mind state where your heightened senses cause you to act irrationally, and it's your own brain that ends up giving you a heart attack. So it could be anything, but mostly it wouldn't be the taser or pepper spray.
Yeah. Well,
Could
my
I ask
concern is we're
something
going to
on that?
skip. Hold on a second. My concern is that we're going to skip a whole section of tools that are used in this continuum of force. That if we just remove that tier where it's basically, I'm not going to tase you and I'm not going to let you go, and there's some physical force that's used to basically get somebody in a car, get the cuffs on them, whatever, will it result in more, basically skipping that tier for the next tier and effectively more people dying than, are currently dying because they have to use other techniques? Sorry, Jenna. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, when you're drugged up, aren't you at least having the ability that you're stronger than you normally are, and you can take more than you normally could, like being tased?
Well, they say mind over matter.
Hun, that's not a thing, sweetie.
Yeah, and really, it's all about your mind state. Some people, tasers have no effect. There's some people where OC spray has no effect either. A taser is not always reliable. It's not always going to put someone down. The prong might miss, and you have to reload manually, which is extremely time-consuming, and it's a lot of what's it called? It's minor dexterity.
Fine motor skills.
Yeah, fine motor skills, exactly. It's a lot of fine motor skills that you have to do. You have to pinch off the two little locks that pull out the cartridge, grab it from the bottom, put it back in. It could be any of the above, but to go with what you were saying when it comes to skipping, I mean, you have the baton, right, the asp, but the problem is the only non-lethal strikes are on the thighs. You can't hit someone in the head with it. You can't hit someone in the chest. You can hit them on the arms in some states, but other than that, it turns into deadly force if you hit someone anywhere other than just the safe spots for pain compliance and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've seen bola guns, but I don't know.
What, Jenna? I wasn't trying to shut you down. I just wanted to say that the things that you see on TV with people who are supposedly on PCP and things like that, and the taser has no effect in real life. Those people go down like elephants being shot with an elephant gun. They just even the gigantic guys, the big football player guys. I've watched a number of these things of real life police tasing situations, and they all do the same thing. They just go on the ground and writhe, and occasionally you'll see one where the electrode misses, or there's not
They're
a good
wearing
connection.
thick clothing.
Yeah, they're wearing thick enough clothing, and those are the guys who seem to get tased and seem to continue on. But if you have a good connection, if those prongs sink in and you get that voltage across your nervous system, you're going to spaz out.
Yeah,
I think I might know the origin of Jenna's question, because I've heard the same thing before about that they had to change caliber after, was it the Spanish-American War? Because some of these crazy bastards get hopped up on God knows what, tape their bodies up, and just go berserk.
It was the Philippines.
So they had to
it was the
caliber.
Philippines. It was the rebellion
in the
Philippines. That's where the 45 caliber pistol. That's where the Colt 911 pistol came from.
Right history, wrong war, Harry. Okay, got
The
it.
1911. Wasn't that the...
So
yeah, that's exactly
because they
right,
were shooting like 38 service revolvers or something,
Yeah.
and that was
that's
doing
it.
jack
32
all.
and 32 and 38 calibers, and it had no stopping power. It was like shooting them with a 9mm. They just kept coming, and so they started shooting them with 45 caliber, and 45 has enough kinetic energy to knock you down.
It is a problem solver, isn't it?
It is a problem solver.
God, isn't it?
It's a happy little
Change
gun.
the air
Sorry, Jenna.
pressure if you're near one when it's fired.
I wanted to, I didn't think that from watching too many CSI episodes. It's just something that
Actually, there have been some very detailed double blind, not double blind, but controlled studies done, giving people therapeutic amounts of cocaine, of methamphetamine, and even PCP to see if it increased their physical strength. And only one drug enhanced the significantly enhanced the lifting ability of men only, not women. And do you know what drug it was?
Was it caffeine?
Nope.
Was it
Then they
methamphetamine?
tried caffeine, and a lot of people thought that they would be able to, and they lifted the same as when they were not caffeinated.
Okay.
Any other guesses? It was cocaine.
Oh,
Cocaine
your coke and good for you.
actually provided a fairly significant advantage in the men's lifting. I believe it was specifically the men's deadlift and the men's what they call it's a power lift called squat. Their numbers went significantly up. So,
Well, that's one metric for sports performance. I wonder if they also looked at something like VO2 max or certain types of recovery for anaerobic activity and that sort of stuff.
This was not an aerobic evaluation. This was really anaerobic strength.
Right. It was just basically, go here, no warm up, lift this.
Except that was exactly what it was. That's exactly it was walk up to this and lift it. Exactly, just like that. Yep. So anyway, be that as it may, we tackled the important stuff here on Minions.
I'm so inappropriate. I was thinking what you could do is put some crack underneath a car and then tell people if they can lift it, they can get to it. And then see how strong they actually are.
Or if you wanted to take someone else, tell them there's crack under the car and then hire Suge Knight.
Yeah, well, crack is a form of cocaine, so I mean, I'm not not adding to the conversation. I saw a video not too long ago. Some guy was commenting on this. What guy looked like a guy was a crackhead, and he was trying to steal an entire refrigerator, and he was basically just picking. He was picking this refrigerator up, and then he got on this wobbly bicycle and rode away with it, with like a whole full-size fridge.
That should collapse the wheels.
It should, but apparently crackhead strength creates a field which reinforces.
Force field.
That's funny.
At that point, you just let him take the fridge because it's just like, you know what? You've earned it.
You've earned it.
Take a picture for the insurance adjuster and go, look, it really was stolen.
I wonder what you can get for a fridge at a pawn shop.
I've moved any number of refrigerators for various reasons in my life. For some reason, I've had to move a lot of giant appliances, and refrigerators are one of my least favorite. They're huge, they're bulky, and the weight is unevenly distributed.
Mm-hmm.
It's all down toward the bottom.
You got to move these refrigerators.
Where the compressor is.
You got to move these color
TVs. Yeah, color TVs are actually pretty easy. They're just bulky, but refrigerators are freaking heavy. Anyway, dryers are a lot lighter than washers, by the way.
Yes, they are. They have fewer working parts in them.
Well, yeah, and they
might have something to do with it.
Don't have a big, gigantic steel tub in them.
Yeah.
They're just kind of bent sheet metal and a whole bunch of air. But anyway, be that as it may, it has. We are cursed to live in interesting times.
Yeah.
One of the things this has been a boon for is the internet, is the YouTube commentary business. I've been watching everything from Useful Idiots podcast to Sticks, Hex, and Hammer to Ben Shapiro to Sarah Corrier to all kinds of liberal and conservative and libertarian heroes. And everybody has an opinion about this stuff, and there's so much talking going on that so many people and anyway, the interesting part of the phenomenon, and there is one, I promise I'll get there soon. The interesting part of this phenomenon is that more people get more information faster and are able to exchange that information with one another more than they ever have been in history. Having something like Twitter, where I can go on and, I have enough of a number of followers where I have followers all over the world. When I tweet something out, all over people, and I think my following represents like 60 countries or something. There's followers from 60 countries. I looked at that one time. People in 60 countries around the world see my thoughts as soon as I click tweet or as soon as I click reply. They see what I like. They see what I comment. They see who I block or whatever. They have access to that information. This has never been true in history. It is such a fundamental change in the dynamics of information exchange. And you're seeing all the big institutions that used to operate in an environment where the information proletariat got whatever the upper party and lower party information, CNN, NBC, ABC, so forth, CBS, used to share with them. That was the old model. Nowadays, you have citizen journalists who go on site, take their own cameras, file their own stories. The Tim Pool model is becoming a thing, and some of Tim Pool's videos are getting more eyeballs on them than Brian Stelter on CNN, and I love that, by the way. This is a fundamental change, and I think it is so interesting. What were you going to say, Jenna?
I was going to say I watched a little of Tim tonight before my head exploded, and I think he had 40,000 watching.
Yes.
Which is more than, those are CNN's wet dreams.
Yes, exactly. He and frankly, he's much more. And Tim is not the most interesting person on earth. I've met him, talked to him personally, in person, and he's not an absolutely fascinating person, but he does fascinating things, and he covers stories somewhat fairly. And this is, I think that's going to become the new gold standard.
I
don't know, what is it?
Fairly covered news.
Yeah.
If that is only now becoming the gold standard, that is a very sad comment
I
on the
agree with
history.
Well,
Exactly.
it was the gold standard at one time. At the time of Edwin R. Murrow, even the time of Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite was a very, very liberal, very progressive man, but you never knew it. You never knew it from Uncle Walter's broadcasts when he was doing the nightly news with Walter Cronkite, on CBS. You did not know that he was a flaming progressive the way that that his supposed heir, Dan Rather, is a screaming Mimi progressive. You had no idea. Walter Cronkite would never think of inserting his narrative into the news because that was sacrosanct. Now at places like CNBC CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, and NBC, that's all they do. Fox too. They just do it a different way. I don't know. What does anybody else think about this? Is this worth talking about?
About the unfairity of, or not the unfairity, about the fact that back then Walter went out to give you the information and not try to persuade you to one side. And now we have, if you vote for this person, you're completely evil on
Yes,
the
the
news.
Brian Stelter model, exactly.
I forgot her name. And then the people like us who have a conversation and we do give opinions, but we're open for other opinions. And then the people like Tim Pool and a few others who do a pretty fair job of being moderate, giving it not left side or right side.
Yeah, Tim does a pretty good job as for my money. I don't know. Harry, what do you think about this?
Well, I was thinking about the beginning of your statement. I don't know. You covered a lot of ground. In terms of the technological change, that's something we're definitely going to have to link back to. I was reading a paper from 1980, I think it was 1988, or maybe it was 83, and they were talking about the number of bytes in all of the email and news that was basically passing around the proto-internet at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a week's worth of traffic for all the people in the world who had email worked out to about 4 gigabytes. That was the sum total of all of the traffic on the internet for a week, basically.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's less than one good-sized HD video file now.
Oh, yeah. The first DNS servers, my memory, the first DNS servers, they were nothing more than text lists.
Well, we are going to talk about this at length at some point in the future, but you're
Yes.
not wrong. You're not wrong about the change in this sort of thing. I was sort of aggressively chasing technology for a long time, and it was always sort of my goal that I would have something that would let me connect to the internet long before smartphones and all that sort of stuff. Nokia was coming out with pretty decent little phones in the 90s that had decent video cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and you had some kind of stuff based on Symbian that let you copy that video somewhere,
Yeah.
live. So you had like a video camera with an internet all built in. So it wasn't the whole thing with the truck with the VHF uplink to the tower, or the satellite or whatever. It was just like, you could have a cell phone with like a few megapixel camera with a decent lens and decent battery life, and you could just go to where the news was, and you could be, I'm a citizen reporter. And that has not really been around all that long. And it gets into the whole discussion of, well, what constitutes press? And in the law, I'm sure Prospero knows about this, there is really kind of a sticky question about, well, what does a press pass actually mean? What does it mean for somebody to claim that their sources are confidential? Do some of the traditional official and unofficial privileges that the press have extend to citizen journalists? Because in terms of somebody's reach to the common proletariat, your only chance of having anybody hear you for the longest time was writing a well-worded letter to the editor that would maybe possibly be picked up and reprinted in the newspaper. And then it was getting past the call screener on talk radio.
Right.
So where we are now is so dramatically different that it's kind of unbelievable. And a lot of stuff just doesn't get covered. And the only way you can find out about it is to, go online.
Well,
There's tons and tons of stuff that never makes any news channel.
Well, the notion that the press is some kind of guild with, a code of ethics and professional standards and is cute, but it doesn't exist.
Right.
It never has existed. Anybody could go into the newspaper business. The barrier of entry was cost. That was it.
And risk.
And risk. But the storefront, the press, the paper, the material that went into it, that kind of thing. But it was more of an entrepreneurial thing than it was anything noble. The press has created themselves. By freedom of the press, and if you consider what the press was at the time the Constitution was drafted, functionally talking about pamphleteers and gazetteers, and book publication. You know, the press was used for it all because it's shorthand for printed word, using a printed press. There was no press pool in Washington's administration. Nothing of the sort. The press were whoever wanted to do it. It wasn't, we didn't have journalism schools for ages upon ages. What, Columbia and out in Missouri was one of the first established.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it
Still is considered one of the best schools of journalism.
But that's a 20th century entity.
Phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yeah, very definitely. You know,
You had correspondence, people who wrote dispatches. I mean, you can go back to the broadsheets. That were the common. But the broadsheet was the town crier on a piece of paper, basically. It told you what was coming up, and I mean, the British had it, we had it. You know, many countries in the West, in particular, had some form of broadsheet that,
or tabloid form.
yeah, and there was no this notion that there is some kind of code of ethics. I'm sure they've drafted varying and sundry codes of ethics. They don't. Damned if I know what they are.
Well, there's no pledge that you take like the Hippocratic Oath or anything like that when you go into.
It's not a profession. There's no exam.
It's a trade. It is a trade. It's definitely a trade.
But it isn't even a guild.
No, neither is it specially legally protected. People think there are these legal protections special to the press is no, it's not. It absolutely is not. When a reporter says to the police, "No, I'm not going to disclose the name of the source," all he's doing is refusing to cooperate with police in the investigation, which is completely legal.
Okay.
You can't impede it, but you can fail to cooperate with it.
Which is why
it's called the Fourth Amendment. Get over it.
Which is why the
and the Fifth.
People,
and the Fifth.
Yes. And people who have gone and sat in jail because ambitious prosecutors have thrown members of the press in jail for failure to cooperate because they claim they're impeding an investigation.
Yeah, but name one reporter who lost that case.
Right. And here's the thing. If somebody speaks to an individual, gives them information and they follow it up in the course of the thing, and they swear them to secrecy, a man's word used to be his bond, right? And
a handshake.
You don't throw priests in jail for failing to disclose what took place in a confessional. There's a certain courtesy, given to, I'm sorry, I gave my word. Or, I don't have to tell you where I found that out, you idiot. Which is basically what the press says when people will say, you have to tell us who your source is. Now, I think it's a pain in the ass that most of journalism is so fucking gossipy. According, a source familiar with the matter, there were people who used to go on record, particularly with administrations, saying now everything is just innuendo and a big game of telephone. But this notion that the press is sacrosanct is some bullshit that they concocted themselves out of whole cloth. Some of it had to do with the glory of the war correspondent, and the invaluable service that Ernie Pyle played, and Edward R. Murrow to, being in London during the Blitz and letting people know. People then we hear their voices on the radio. My God, they are gods, are they not? And then TV came along, and these people who call themselves journalists sat there, and it didn't take them very long to start telling us what to think. There's a golden age, and that is a breath in time, Skep.
I agree with
Between
you.
Walter Cronkite and John Chancellor. Because John Chancellor was not much younger than Walter Cronkite. But John Chancellor,
But he was
you
very
always
normative.
knew what the fuck he meant, what he thought.
Yeah.
You never knew what Huntley and Brinkley thought.
No.
So you had Huntley, Brinkley, Cronkite. You had the Edward R. Murrow class that lasted, I don't know, 15 to 20 years. By the time the Vietnam War was in full throat, you had opinion and news being blended together in teletainment.
Well, compare David Brinkley with Chris Brinkley.
Jesus, can't.
Can,
can't.
I
David Brinkley used to talk like this.
Walter and his crew, the ones that didn't play one side versus the other, they wanted to do it with some dignity. They didn't
they-
want to be a laughingstock.
Right, they were
wanted-
they were in a nascent profession, and they knew it. The television newsman. And
They had a real respect, though, for being impartial.
yes, as did Murrow.
Murrow definitely did. He was the crown prince of that, really.
Yes, because his job was to report what was happening, and Murrow's rise to fame really is his war reporting.
There you go.
And you compare Edward R. Murrow reporting from London.
Well, Cronkite was a war reporter, too, do you
Yeah,
remember?
most of them were.
Yeah.
And then you got the pretty war reporters. When the TV became important, see, that other stuff was radio. We heard them on the radio. It was the photographers that gave us the pictures. It was Steichen and Stieglitz that gave us the pictures.
Stiglitz, yeah.
It was Murrow that put words to the pictures.
I've thought about that name a long time.
So, you know, or somebody like Ernie Pyle,
Ernie Pyle, right.
who was basically exactly what he was called, a correspondent. He wrote letters, he wrote dispatches from the front lines.
He was embedded.
Absolutely embedded. He almost made it to the end of the war, poor son of a bitch.
I know.
Well, remember CNN, the first Gulf War basically put
shit.
them on the map
Yeah, I know, but Wolf Blitzer under the desk.
with the
and
Scud stud.
oh my God, that was embarrassing. Okay, I mean,
Women, you embarrassed yourself. Women of the world, you embarrassed yourself with that whole Scud stud.
I
thing.
didn't think he
Just
was a
saying.
What
scud
are you
stud at all. My
talking
mother and
about?
I were looking at each other, and we were like, "This is not Edward R. Murrow. That sounds like a scared little girl hiding under a desk." Edward R. Murrow. I mean, people pictured him on a rooftop, and the krauts were flying overhead, and he was just like, "Fuck you!" You know, there was a different image at all entirely from that.
Well, he was a man.
Yes, he wasn't a scared little girl hiding under a
Right.
desk.
Exactly. You know.
Miles away from where the shit was going down.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which-
So far away, that all he could do was watch the anti-aircraft fire in the distance. That was pretty fun.
It was pretty funny. I mean, I was caught up in watching the coverage because I was very anxious about what was going to occur. But and we have seen many war correspondents die, and I'm not shitting on their bravery at all. The ones who embed in particular, and it has a huge impact on the troops they embed with too, unless the guy's a prick. You know, Ernie Pyle's loss was felt throughout anybody
It was a shock to America.
stationed in the Pacific.
Well, what about those mad lads who were there for what essentially was supposed to be easy duty on Midway,
Yeah,
and those bastards just kept filming. They were
Yeah.
not prepared for that.
no,
And all of a sudden, it's like, holy shit, we're suddenly going from doing a puff piece to being in the middle of a freaking war zone.
well, it's like
And
they
those
got,
guys just kept filming.
it's
I
like
know.
the film they got
So
at
studly.
The
Pearl Harbor, too,
ponderous
you know?
balls.
Well, yeah, and I mean, a lot of these guys. Andy Rooney
Truly.
was a war correspondent,
Pendulous.
but most
Critical
those guys
mass.
didn't go to journalism school.
Yeah, they couldn't have been any good. They didn't go to journalism school like Brian Stelter.
This is the amazing thing. I'll never forget Britt Hume asking Mort Kondracki and Fred Barnes and Juan Williams, one night at the
Oh,
end of
good night,
special.
Sora.
Good night, Sora.
Good night, Sora,
Night,
sweetie.
Sora.
I'm just a little bit too tired.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very, very sore.
Sorry, I wasn't
You just want to
looking
wake up
like
early and
that.
buy a pink iMac. I know what you're up to.
Sweetheart, I was
Oh
Good night,
God,
Sora.
if I could.
stabbing myself in the thigh a few minutes ago. It's just-
All right.
Night, night,
Thank
Sure.
you for the invitation, Skep.
It's
All right,
always
sweet
great
dreams.
to have you. Sweet dreams.
Good
Get some
night,
sleep,
everyone.
sweetie.
Good
Have a
night.
great
Good night,
week,
hon.
all. Bye.
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 Oh God, there I go again. They weren't and he said, "Didn't you go to journalism school?" Because something had come up about journalism, and these were men who had all made their name in journalism, and all of them were kind of scoffing at the concept of journalism, because Juan Williams was a philosophy major, political science, English. Those were the majors that they came from. They all knew how to write
Well, that's
because they were educated in a time where they were required to know how to write in those disciplines.
yeah. They
They
actually.
discussed their feelings. They wrote theses.
Fred Barnes actually didn't he go to University of Virginia? I think it's a
Maybe,
UVA grad.
Yeah, boy, there's a diploma that the shines come off of it.
Sorry.
Well, I didn't go there. I'm sorry, my dad's not alive. He'd be rolling on the ground laughing. You know, because the University of Virginia has always been a very fine school, but they've always been very puffed up about themselves.
Oh yeah.
So, oh, how the mighty have fallen, just
Yeah.
like with Harvard, is amusing me. You know, they've been telling us the Ivies and these other top-ranked schools, how their shit doesn't stink for 50 years. And now they're stinking up the room.
Yeah.
Because about half the country's copped wise to how corrupt
You know who
they
Barnes
are.
went to high school with? Brett Hume.
Oh,
They were
went-
friends in high school.
Oh, they went to, what is it, Cathedral Episcopal or wherever they went in yeah.
I don't know.
DC.
I'm just reading about Fred Barnes that. No, they went to different high schools, but the high schools were competitive and they knew each other though during high school. And
Yeah.
Barnes was a friend of fellow Fox personality Brett Hume in high school
They're DC critters.
and at the University of Virginia also. They were friends. So there.
Should I throw something out there?
I think you could throw it out there.
So have you guys talked about Walter Mondale? Jimmy
Walter
Carter's vice president?
Yeah.
Walter.
What about Dino Walter?
Then he passed away.
He
No, I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't? Yes, he did. He passed away.
He passed
Oh.
away on
93.
the 19th.
93 good innings.
What do you say, Dino? Do you mean Dino is in old or Dino is in Democrat
He
name
was
only?
he was a dynamic man. He was an amazing ball of fire. He was a fascinating guy, the sort of guy who just
He was
lights
a
up.
wonk. He was a wonk. Bless
The new
him.
guy,
He was a decent man.
He was a decent man,
Very
but he was
decent
dull
man.
as dishwater.
And he had the decency to laugh when Ronald Reagan told a joke at his expense, and a genuine laugh it was. It didn't.
It really was.
It wasn't that teeth gritty, you fucker kind of laugh.
Just to cover the story for anybody who hadn't heard it. Ronald Reagan in a debate was asked a question about. Or I don't know if it was a question or if it was during the introduction, but at any rate, the comment was made that Ronald Reagan basically, was his age. He was considerably older than Walter Mondale, his opponent, was at the time of the election, and so he said that I won't let my opponent's youth and inexperience. I won't hold that against him, and he turned
that's
turned
funny.
around into a brilliant way, the way only Reagan could.
Mhm.
Everybody laughed, including Walter Mondale, and he laughed heartily and you could just tell he was a good
He
sport.
kept grinning after it, because age came up. You know, you will be,
you'll be the oldest president second oldest president ever inaugurated. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well,
the only older one died 90 days after.
And Reagan kind of did that well. Yeah, I mean, I'm the age I am, but I promise not to hold his youth and inexperience against him.
Right.
And it was such. It diffused the question. It was not pursued after that, and for all those people that think Reagan began losing it right after he was shot, that was a debate. That was an in the moment quit.
Yeah.
People with significant mental deficiencies don't make quips like that.
Yeah. What Reagan said, he said, "I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience."
No, it was great.
That was exactly what he said.
And
I think to differ.
It ruined anybody's hope of using age in that that cycle.
Yeah, they wanted to tear Reagan up on the age issue. What were you going to say, Jenna?
Oh, I was going to give Prospero a hard time about not being able to be quick-witted because of brain stuff.
I'm done.
It's hard. It's
well,
hard
no,
to
I was gonna
be quick-witted at my age, so I have a lot of respect for Reagan.
If I can remember what it was I wanted to say 5 minutes, when I thought of it 5 minutes ago, I feel like it's a small victory.
Yeah.
I also wanted to tie Walter into today's media. So CNN was doing an all about Vice President Walter guy. And it was as if it was the second coming of Jesus.
Oh, yes, of course it was.
He made the vice presidency an important role. He blah, 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 so on.
God. Nobody remembers a goddamn thing Walter Mondale said in the 4 years that Jimmy Carter was president. I will promise you that. I was alive during the entire period. Walter Mondale was the vice president, and that was it. It's just, Skep, you remember great moments in Walter Mondale? Yeah, I don't. I feel very badly because
it's a slim volume.
Like I'm shitting on I'm shitting on a dead man. Walter Mondale was a fine man,
but he was not memorable. He was a quiet policy wonk, as Prospero said.
Right, and the whole administration was wonky. The entire 4 years of the Carter administration was micromanaged wonk. And it was, and it was annoying because it was micromanaged wonk, and it came off looking because of that as if it were highly indecisive.
Well, it was just interesting to hear.
Jody Powell was the most interesting person in the entire administration.
Jesus Christ, paint drying.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was a grim time. Carter lost basically because Carter didn't know how Washington. The reason he was a one-term president was because he didn't know how Washington worked, and he fired all the old Washington hands, brought in his own team to run things. They blew it, and he soon found Washington was working against him, and the reason Reagan was successful was he did exactly the opposite.
Can you make me full screen?
Yeah, hang on.
Oh my God. That's painful. That's painful.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, is the electoral map when Reagan and Mondale ran against each other for the presidency.
You're kidding.
Yeah, Washington, D.C. and Minnesota.
The parts in blue.
Yeah, we got to get somebody who carry Minnesota. Okay, yeah. Make him the vice president.
Yeah, it was a beat down of biblical proportion. Hawaii voted Republican.
Hawaii, I was just looking at that. Yeah.
California and Hawaii.
And New York. And New York.
Oregon.
Yeah, and Washington, Oregon, California, New York, Hawaii, all went for Reagan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even Dukakis didn't lose this badly,
No, and he lost badly.
and he lost badly.
The only person
tank
to
there, little
lose
man.
worse, I think, was Goldwater worse, or was this the worst?
This was the worst.
This was the biggest landslide, was it really?
I'm almost
In terms
I
of
got-
electoral votes, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I
almost certain.
got 12 electoral votes. I mean, that's a little embarrassing. Washington was 2 then, right? DC?
Did they have Yeah.
So
When
that
did-
makes 12 electoral votes.
The
Electrical votes, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought DC was
the number
allowed.
one and number 2 electoral landslides were George Washington because he ran unopposed twice.
Right.
I don't
So
think that
you
counts.
Well, yeah, you got to
That
give him
doesn't
that.
count.
First time doesn't
But
count.
listen to this. Listen to this. Number 3 is James Monroe with an electoral college result of 231 to 1 for an electrical college vote percentage of 99.57. One elector gave his vote to John Quincy Adams.
Thank you, Harry.
I respect his courage.
Anyway, I just thought you would appreciate that.
Oh my God, that picture, Harry. That picture.
Yeah.
That it's just.
I like the
Doinky,
name
doinky.
tag on the helmet.
Yeah, Mike Dukakis, just in case you didn't know.
If you
I
want
got
to
a
know
helmet.
why Kitty Dukakis drank Sterno, it's stuff like this.
It's the
I
I
don't
got
know,
a
this
helmet
is,
photograph is.
We bring you the freshest news.
Look
here
at the
on
chin
Minions.
strap.
That's the chin strap is what did it for me.
It's turned to his cheek. It's so cute.
I took a screenshot of it to show it to James.
Oh, yeah, it's a legend because Mike Dukakis had been governor of Massachusetts.
Yeah, and just the insult to military.
Well, it wasn't an insult. I mean, he didn't mean it as an insult. He just looked like a dweeb, and it was just hilarious. It was like the AV club goes and plays soldier. It's just not
It
good.
was a low moment for the Army, though.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Thank God he didn't do this on a ship.
I was working
He
in
might have
a
fallen
restaurant.
off by mistake.
I was working in a restaurant at the time, and I was managing while trying to put myself through school. So I was managing this restaurant, and I made up some fake table tents. I was young and stupid, and I would do young, stupid things. Instead of going out and having keggers and getting injured and stuff, my idea of doing something stupid was I would go to work and I'd make up fake table tents, and I had this little thing like you'd put on the table for what the meal special would be. And for customers that I'd talked to and I kind of knew where their affiliations were, I just put this quietly on the table, and it was a table flyer for chicken Dukakis. And it was all chicken left wings and assholes smothered in a rich sauce. I would just wait for them to see it. Laughing and go, okay, that's not real. We don't actually have chicken Dukakis.
Oh, that is funny, Harry.
A hearty
Oh,
blend
man.
of left wings and assholes got smothered in a rich sauce.
That's pretty wonderful, actually.
Oh, it is.
I'm
You
very impressed. What year was that, Harry?
I don't remember. It was the year of the election.
No, it was. Geez.
It was well. It had to be. It had to be. Well, I don't want to. Actually, don't necessarily want to say that, but it was in the 80s.
It was 88.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually was gonna ask,
The year
was
of the
New
election.
Guy and I alive?
Yeah, that was the year
I
of
was
the
not
election.
alive in '88.
It was 88.
I was.
Yeah.
You whippersnapper. What is it?
Whippersnapper.
Whippersnapper.
Whipper. Like whipper.
Whippersnapper.
Lying
Whippersnapper.
dog-faced pony soldier.
Like faced pony soldier. That's what you.
Yeah,
like
listen here,
dog-faced
Brad.
pony.
Come on.
How about I challenge you to a push-up contest?
Oh my God, this is so.
That's
This
what he
is
called it.
almost the only thing that has come close to this picture. in the "Oh dear God, this is our commander-in-chief" that ever struck me. Well, there are two. Barack Obama and Mom Jeans with a bike helmet on
Oh, that was bad.
is not a good look.
That was bad.
I want to see
But him
that
firing
picture.
the boomstick with the, in quote, smoke coming out of it. Like he was firing black powder. Somebody photo added that. You know, it was just too much. It was awesome. He just looked like, where are the skeets at? It's not a good look.
Let's go out there and shoot some of these assault rifles.
Yeah.
I'm a man now.
Give me
Well,
that.
I feel like
full-
a brute man.
Give me that clipazine meant for the fully semi-auto.
Well, there are moments like this in politics. There's "Please Clap" with the dynamic Jeb Bush.
Oh yeah.
And then there was
Oh,
that
oh.
girly scream that Howard Dean did that one time where he's like, are you going to go, yeah! It's like, don't ever do that
That
again.
was so good.
On to New Hampshire.
And dude, just how
He'd
fast
been
can somebody's
writing
public
his own
ratings go down?
prescriptions. I swear to God. The good doc. I was like, dude, what are you taking? Man, have you ever seen a campaign die that fast?
Oh, speaking of things that are going to die fast,
Other
I
than
have to
Kamala
leave.
Harris's.
Oh, you have to go now.
It is roughly that time, so I'm just going
Oh,
to say
yeah.
thanks for having me on. I had a good time. You did a good job, new guy. Let's see, is there anything else I need to be done with as far as conversations go?
Are you going to come back to the after show in a little while, or are you
Oh, yeah.
going to take it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll come for the after show.
I may
Right,
I may not be there.
I'll keep
All right.
new guy around so you can talk.
Thanks,
clinging.
everybody. Good night.
All right.
Right.
Good night,
Thank
Harry.
you.
Thank you for joining us. And so there we are. But at any rate, yeah, it's probably getting
He
down.
left. You might want to take that picture down.
Yeah, well, hang on.
It's just.
There you go.
I'm sorry. It's
Stick
just
it
sad.
At least,
That was a bad campaign. Oh my good God, that was a bad campaign. The debate about the death penalty question.
Mm-hmm.
If your wife were raped and murdered, would you consider, or would you personally want her murderer who you put to death? And without a pause, he said no.
Yeah.
No pause. No pause. I understand the man was committed against the death penalty, but he had released somebody on parole. They in Massachusetts who had killed again,
Yeah.
and
He
that
cost
was,
somebody their life.
yeah, that was a huge issue. That his
What's the guy's name? Was it Willie Sutton?
It was, yeah, that was it. And I mean, it was like he was out on parole, and then boom, it was not much time, and hell, Massachusetts didn't vote for him. Okay, Massachusetts voted for Ronald. I mean,
That's pathetic.
Wait, did Dukakis win Massachusetts?
I don't think so.
I don't think he did.
No, I don't think he did.
I'll look it up.
Let's see. I think that
I thought Bush won it, but I may be wrong.
let's see. George H.W. Bush defeated Michael Dukakis. Bush won the popular vote by. He won 426 of the 538 electoral votes. So I suspect
Dukakis might
that
have won it.
Dukakis probably won Massachusetts.
Yeah,
And
If anything, you got to give him credit because it takes a lot of courage to be that stupid in public.
yeah. Let's see. I'll tell you.
I'll bring up the Electoral Map 1988.
I'm looking at it right
Yeah,
now.
he won Massachusetts.
He won
New York.
Massachusetts.
He won
New York.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
That was back in.
Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington, and
Yeah.
Hawaii.
And he did not win California.
And he did not win California. Yeah.
I just
Won
would like to
Massachusetts.
apologize for my
He also
mistake.
won Rhode Island,
Well,
I wasn't
Jesus.
old enough.
oddly,
And Hawaii.
and Hawaii. Yeah.
But the it was pathetic. It really was pathetic. I mean, Dukakis hadn't just utterly destroyed Massachusetts, but he was hoping to, I think. And that whole parole thing was just a nightmare. And then to not even I had it described to me by an uncle by affinity, not sanguinity. He said, "My God, you almost heard the entire nation gasp." I can understand saying, no, I'm sorry, I am very much against the death penalty. But you should pause and say, do you know how difficult that would be for me? It would be extremely difficult, but morally, I believe the death penalty is wrong. So I would have to be consistent even with that kind of personal harm. It sounded like he didn't care about his wife.
No, it did. It sounded
Callous.
callous. That's the word I was trying to think of. Thank you.
And
I haven't.
there was a way
It
to
was
answer
an interesting.
it.
There's an interesting asterisk to the '88 election, though.
Yeah.
A rare event in any United States presidential election, and this happened in West Virginia, of all places. They had a faithless elector in 1988. He didn't vote for who she was supposed to vote for. Margaret Leach cast her vote for vice presidential nominee Lloyd Benson as president and Dukakis as vice president. She did this in order to draw attention to the lack of accountability for electors under the electoral college system. She did it as kind of a protest.
Mm-hmm.
So she switched them. So actually, Lloyd Benson got an electoral vote for president in one of the true interesting presidential historical oddities.
Lloyd Benson, that was another dynamo.
Oh, I actually got to meet him. I'm when I was a stockbroker, when I was a Merrill Lynch guy, one of my rich doctors held a campaign event for Lloyd Benson for one of his re-election efforts, and I got to meet him and talk to him. He's one of the least interesting people alive.
Oh, he was just dull as dishwater.
Oh my God, in person he's worse. Trust me. And he had wrinkles on his wrinkles. He was amazingly old looking when I met him.
Yeah, he was a very weathered man.
He wasn't very weathered. He was very outdoors guy, actually, if you want.
Yeah.
The truth.
But
there
that
you go.
Wow.
But anyway, we have come to the end of 2 hours you have spent of your life with us, and I want to thank chat for coming out and hanging with us, and thank my panel for being my friends and spending 2 hours with me. And just ask if there's anybody else has something deep and profound that they wanted to say this evening, or share with us, or any of that kind of stuff. Anything that's burning in your heart that you want to let out. Now is the time.
I'd just like to once again thank Susan for providing this lovely platform, YouTube, for us to stream on.
Yes, thank you.
I cannot tell you how much I admire her.
I'd like to thank Susan for the fact that whoever is running the stream can mute me. I appreciate that, Susan. For when I accidentally don't think before speaking and wrong talk.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. We love you, Susan. And with that, I'm going to close it out with this. Delusions are often functional. A mother's opinions about her children's beauty, intelligence, goodness, etc., ad nauseum, keep her from drowning them at birth. and that is from the Notebooks of Lazarus Long by Robert A. Heinlein. We're going to wish you a happy Tuesday or an early Wednesday. But for this edition of Minions of the Zoo is closed. Good night, everybody.
God bless you.